Good afternoon. We're here today to introduce the legal team that will defend Governor Rick Perry from this outrageous, political, and unprecedented indictment of an incumbent governor in the United States. Now, kind of the way we're going to go about this is introduce you specifically to the team and then talk about some of the issues that have arisen in this case. First, let me start with some of the members of our team. To my left here is Bobby Birchfield. Bobby Birchfield is a nationally recognized courtroom lawyer. He has tried major cases all across the United States, and he's never lost a jury trial. Bobby also is an accomplished appellate lawyer, and he's also argued 2 cases in front of the United States Supreme Court. Bobby has also served as general counsel to the George H.W. Bush re-election campaign. He is an important part of our team, and we're proud to have him on the team. Next, let me introduce Ben Ginsberg. Ben is a partner at Jones Day in Washington, D.C. He's been involved in presidential, governor, and congressional campaigns for over 30 years. He also served as counsel to the Bush-Cheney campaign, and he also represented George W. Bush in the recount in Florida, and also co-chaired President Obama's Committee on Election Administration. Next, let me introduce David Botsford. Some of you know David. He has been serving as our courtroom lawyer and has handled all the issues involving actions in front of the grand jury. He's going to stay a member of the team. David is a board-certified criminal lawyer and criminal appellate lawyer. He has handled state and federal cases all across the state of Texas. He's been a lawyer for 37 years. He's also former president of the TCDLA, the Texas Criminal Defense Lawyers. My name is Tony Buzbee. I'm going to lead this team. I am a lawyer out of Houston, Texas, where I've been practicing for almost 2 decades, and we have put together a team that we feel will demonstrate that what has happened here was not only has no merit, but also is absolutely contrary to the law. One other member of the team that I need to mention is former Justice Tom Phillips. He was the Chief Justice of the Texas Supreme Court for more than 6 years. He's also going to be a member of this defense team. Unfortunately, he could not be here today. Now, the way we're going to run this is we will have questions at the end, but we have a few things we want to say before that. What is clear over the last 72 hours since this outrageous assault on the rule of law began is that there has been a near universal condemnation of this indictment by political commentators, constitutional scholars, and major newspapers across the country. Let me be clear about this. Governor Perry will fight this indictment 100%. And at the end of the day, he will prevail because he's on the side of the rule of law. The governor acted lawfully and properly exercised his power under the law and, frankly, his obligation as governor to protect the public safety. At the end of the day, and I think anybody who's seen this tape will agree, Governor Perry did what anyone else would do with not only the obligation and right of veto, he did what was right. And he did what was correct. Let's not forget what precipitated this, the genesis of the reason we're all here. Recall that Governor Perry, when he vetoed this line item appropriation, his message was clear. He said, despite the otherwise good work of the Public Integrity Unit's employees, I cannot, in good conscience, support state funding for an office with statewide jurisdiction at a time when the person charged with the ultimate responsibility of that unit has lost the public's confidence. This unit is no other way held accountable to state taxpayers except through the state budgetary process. I therefore object to and disapprove of this appropriation. Let's take a look at some of the highlights of what not only Governor Perry saw, but many of us saw on that tape involving the Travis County District Attorney. Play the tape, please.
We didn't arrest you. So now you've ruined my entire political career. Do you know what you're doing? All bread. I don't care if you feel all bread. Wrong people. And you're done.
Okay, before
I'm just attorney. Just listen.
no,
Give me my phone. Give me my purse.
they're not
Something.
okay, they're not
That is the Travis County District Attorney. That individual was responsible for $7.5 million of state taxpayer monies. Governor Perry, as the governor, is responsible to ensure that those monies are spent wisely and are overseen by his office. And that's why he vetoed that line item of $7.5 million. Let's not forget, beyond this video, some of the things that occurred during that stop and arrest that night. The Travis County D.A. was found in her car, stopped in a church parking lot with a bottle of gin opened in her car. She was belligerent to the arresting officers. She eventually, when she could no longer perform the field sobriety test or attempt to perform it, she eventually quit doing so. She eventually was restrained and taken in for booking. During the booking process, she was again belligerent to the investigating and booking officers. She told them at times, if you can watch the tape, that they would go to jail. There were times when she was kicking, beating on the window, and screaming. Anybody who sees that tape and understands that conduct would have lost confidence in the Travis County District Attorney. When Governor Perry saw that tape, he, of course, lost confidence in her, and rightly, as was his right, vetoed that line item. Now, it's important to understand the issues raised in this matter are much larger than just Governor Perry. We don't settle political differences in the United States and in Texas in the criminal courts. We settle political differences at the ballot box. This is nothing more than banana republic politics. The charges leveled against the governor are a really nasty attack, not only on the rule of law, but also on the Constitution of the United States and the state of Texas, and also the fundamental constitutional protections that we all enjoy. We can never forget that as governor of the state, Rick Perry continues to have, like all of us have, the right to free speech under the First Amendment. We can not also forget that those of us who took a basic civics class knows that there are something called the separation of powers and checks and balances in our government. We have the legislative body, we have the judiciary, and we have the executive body. Each of them has a role to perform. And the veto is rightly so in the hands of the governor. And finally, let's talk about the right to veto. For more than 100 years, the Texas governor has had, no matter what political party, the right to veto legislation. That is a very important right. It's a right that, as the governor of the state, Rick Perry takes very seriously. This case is about the rule of law. And Rick Perry did not plead the Fifth Amendment. He did not run and hide. Within 72 hours, he had a press conference and said, I will uphold the rule of law. And now we have a team assembled that intends to do that. We'll take a few questions.
Tony, you don't waive the arraignment yet, or you go first ahead?
With regard to process-type questions, there will, of course, be a summons, and there will, of course, be a point where Governor Perry will have to appear. But that's not going to be something that we keep you in the dark about. That's going to be something when he goes in to be booked and take his picture that we're going to let you know about.
When's it going to happen?
We don't know that. We don't know when that will happen, but what I will tell you is that when it comes time to happen, we're going to let everyone know.
Tony, is the state of Texas paying for this entire legal bill here, including the people behind you, everything?
Let me talk about that a little bit, because that's an important question. Since this has occurred, constitutional scholars from all across the United States, from both political parties, have registered their outrage. We have been offered assistance and help from all over the United States. All over. We've had calls from people who, these are people that are household names that wanted to be involved in this case because it was such an outrage about what this district attorney or this special prosecutor did. Let me just let you hear from their mouths a few of these nationally recognized trial lawyers talk to you a little bit about what this really means as far as the rule of law. First, Bobby Birchfield, why don't you come forward and talk a little bit about why you were willing to get involved in this case?
Thank you, Tony. Like the overwhelming majority of people who have discussed this issue, and I'm talking about both Republicans and Democrats, I find this prosecution both outrageous and inexplicable. Governor Perry exercised his right, his duty, and his clear power under the Texas Constitution to assure that money from all Texas taxpayers was prudently spent. He vetoed an entry in an appropriations bill. That was his right and duty based upon his judgment. Some agree with his decision based upon the video that you've seen here today. Some might disagree with his decision, but it was his decision as governor of Texas, and he had a First Amendment right to communicate his reasons for that decision to the people he represents here in the state of Texas. It is inappropriate and dangerous to the concept of self-government for a decision of this nature, taken in the full light of day with no suggestion of personal gain, to be the subject of a criminal prosecution. This is an attempt to criminalize politics, pure and simple. It should not and it will not succeed. And that is why I'm here today.
Who's paying your bill?
I'll let Mr. Buzbee answer.
How much is it?
Not much
We
so
have-
far.
These bills allowed right here.
No, I don't believe so. I'll have to ask them. No. No, we haven't worked out that arrangement yet. Obviously, the state will pay some part of this defense, but let's back up a little bit and make it clear why there has to be a defense in the first place. I mean, without this wrongful indictment, there would be no, the defense would be unnecessary. Without this wrongful indictment, the taxpayers of the state of Texas would not have to pay for such a defense. Now, which of these lawyers will be paid by the state of Texas and which will be paid from other funds, whether it be a defense fund or whatnot, that hasn't been sorted yet. But we thought it would be smart at this point to form the team and make sure that everyone who's interested in this issue knows that we are going to fight and we are going to win. Now let me, just a moment please. I asked for questions, but I want to make sure that Mr. Ginsberg, who came here a long way to speak to you, gets a chance. So, Mr. Ginsberg, please, sir, tell us why you're involved in this case.
Thank you. I am pleased to be here, and as Tony was kind enough to mention, I've been doing this for a lot of years. And there are some cases that you see that just go beyond the pale. This one goes farthest beyond the pale, I think, of any that I've seen in my time. It is a matter of a governor exercising his proper constitutional veto authority. The indictment represents a real tearing of the fabric of democracy in the sense that it does and makes an attempt at setting a harmful precedent in separation of powers doctrine. And those are things that need to be addressed and to be fought as a matter of principle. In fact, this indictment has been so far over the top that looking at the Democrats who have expressed questions and in some places strong disagreement with it is significant about this. These are people who are not habitual Rick Perry supporters, but David Axelrod from the Obama campaign, Alan Dershowitz, the retired Harvard University law professor, Stephen Brill, the founding publisher of The American Lawyer, Rick Hasen, who writes the leading election law blog and listserv, and Lanny Davis have all expressed proper concern about the scope of this indictment and the actions of the district attorney. You really only have to look at that tape that we showed you and recognize that a governor vetoing state funds going to that individual as a matter of policies is perfectly within the bounds and scope of what the Constitution of Texas sets out as what a governor can do. So that's why this is an important case to be able to deal with the principles, the bad principles that have been raised by the indictment. Thank you.
Just a minute. Yes.
Some accusations that the governor did what he did in order to quash an investigation that either involved him or a friend of his and didn't have to do with the drunk driving. It was just the drunk driving was an opportunity. Are you aware of any kind of memo, any kind of statement from anyone within the governor's office that would indicate that that's what the prosecutors have?
You know, having been involved in some degree in politics for some time and represented a lot of people, what I've learned is we all have a First Amendment right to say anything. And a lot of people have said exactly what you've said, but what we have not seen is any proof of that whatsoever. The governor has stated, and he stated on Saturday exactly what was in his mind, but the point is, he doesn't have to tell you any reason why he vetoed the bill. He did so because it was good government, because he is responsive to the people. So he told the people, I'm vetoing this, and here is why. And that's called good government. So when people say that there was some ulterior motive that we don't know about, I certainly don't know about it. Do you know about any other motive other than what's been expressed, Mr. Botsford?
Absolutely no motive that I'm aware of.
Tell us a little bit about the First Amendment and how it plays into the defense in this case, please.
I submit to you, ladies and gentlemen, that if Governor Perry had gone out onto the steps of the mansion or the Capitol, and if he had in fact said to Rosemary Lehmberg, I do not approve of your conduct, I am not going to fund the Public Integrity Unit unless and until you resign. Had that happened, and there's no evidence that that ever happened, but had it happened, he would have been entirely within his rights under the First Amendment and the Texas Constitution. There is absolutely no question as a matter of law that that conduct is protected and it is not illegal. We tried to educate the special prosecutor on all the concerns articulated by far better counsel than us. That education apparently did not get through. We will continue to fight for the rule of law and for the governor's right and power to exercise his duties and to prevent the assault upon the Texas Constitution that this indictment creates.
Mr. Box, think about the meetings after the veto, because there were meetings after the veto as well.
Two quick questions.
Yes.
Partially answered by what you just said, but many say that the veto itself is irrelevant, that it was the threat of vetoing and eliminating her funds unless she resigned that was in fact illegal. That's the first question. Second question is, if the governor has been so concerned about the rule of law, why did you not speak up when two other district attorneys in the past, in 2003 and 2008, Republicans, and in fact were caught with DUI, and he said nothing? Why this?
Well, with regard to your second question, that's something you'll have to ask the governor's office. I'm here to defend the governor and to lead the defense team for this particular case, which involves the Travis County D.A. who was arrested for DUI and eventually pled guilty and spent some time in jail from that. And although it's been reported that the governor stated his intention to veto the bill if she did not resign, I'm not sure whether there's been any actual evidence of that other than a newspaper article. But that is neither here nor there. The point is that the governor has a First Amendment right, just like you do, just like I do, just like we all do, just like some of the comments that some of the people looking for some bad motive here. The point is the governor has a right to say what he chooses. This is one of the things as a member of the military that I fought for, that we have military fighting for today, people that take the oath for that very reason. The First Amendment's a very important right that we all have. Secondly, the governor has the right to veto bills. That is his right. That's what we elect governors to do, whether they're Republicans or whether they're Democrats. He has that right. And frankly, I would respectfully suggest to you, he has that obligation as the governor for good governance. And when he decides to veto a bill, he doesn't have to tell you why he did so, but I think it is good governance for him to do so. Next question.
Tony, can I add something to that?
Ben.
Jim, just a second. Jim, let me just add one thing to that. I'm confused about the principle behind the question. Seems to me if there's no record other than one newspaper article of the governor saying anything. But in a hypothetical, if the governor did say, here's why I'm going to veto a bill, that actually is transparency in government that you guys are all supposed to be for. And so the notion of a governor talking about the reasons he's vetoing a bill somehow turns into a pejorative in this matter is an example of why this is such an out of kilter prosecution.
Okay,
Let me.
That was appointed by a Republican governor, and he is said to be a Republican himself.
Let me close with this, because I've been told that was the last question. We have formed a team here to defend an indictment that is absolutely improper. And any taxpayer or citizen of this state who looks at this indictment and looks at that tape, I feel quite confident will feel just like me that this was wrong and what the governor did was right. And we look forward to not trying this case in the press, but to trying the case in the courtroom.
You said it was
Thank you.
political, and you haven't explained how.